since 2003, after 2003, I used to play the 𝐎𝐩𝐞𝐳𝐢𝐴 quite a bit. I think at first I almost regarded it as a bit of a cheat code in local tournaments, because most Norwegians, in general, people around tournaments, they would go for an early. Let me just see. They would go for an early bishop takes f6. So what they would do is they would play these positions, and they would usually not have too much of a clue what to do for some reason, and then,
despite being the sharpest line,
and you would go f5, and you would get a huge center. So that was my experience playing these games, that usually when I got the 𝐎𝐻𝐻𝐿, I would steamroll people.
Were you more inclined to study sharp theory and long lines at that point in your chess career?
I guess to some extent. It took a little while before I took up the 𝐎𝐻𝐻𝐿, but in general, the way that you could apparently get very interesting sharp positions so early on, it appealed to me. That's for sure. So what I think happened over time is that people would more and more often choose these lines with knight d5, which leads to a lot more positional play, which sort of and also 3 bishop b5 or 3 knight c3, which sort of put a dent in the appeal of the 𝐎𝐻𝐻𝐿. So I think this game, more than anything else, shows the what Black has to go through to create winning chances in this particular.
Because you really had to throw the kitchen sink.
Yeah, I really did have, and which is one of the things that makes me pretty proud of this game, even to this day.
Yeah, I gotta say, this is one of my favorite games in the course, and we'll talk about it during the game, but playing around that knight on d5 and the constant strategic threat that knight presents is an important theme.
So I guess we'll start here after bishop d8, and this is the start of I said before we started that this is one of my favorite themes, and I think for many years I've been trying to argue that the bishop on d8 dominates the knight on d5 in some of these cases, that often I feel that for one, the bishop protects all of the forward squares for the knight, and also the knight, whenever the knight moves, the bishop becomes active immediately. In this particular case, at least at this moment, it's a major exaggeration. Probably at this point, the knight is better, but the game shows that it's possible to play around it.
And just for context, can you show the queen e8 move too?
Yeah.
A couple moves prior.
So what happened is I made the move queen e8 for a few reasons. I wanted to get the queen out of the attack, obviously. I wanted to be able to harmoniously regroup the bishop to d8. And besides, if the queen goes to d8, it cannot go to g6. So what I would want at some point is to go king h8, then go f5, recapture on f5, and then put the queen actively on d6. So
I just think that's such a telling moment, because one of the hallmarks of great players is they'll play moves that visually to a weaker player look awkward. I mean, queen e8, you're boxing in the rook. Looks like knight c7 is floating in the air, even though you're hitting the rook on a4 twice, of course. Yeah. So that was kind of cool how that set up your next move, bishop d8.
Yeah. I think to me at that point I played a bit of 𝐎𝐻𝐻𝐿, so it it was very clear to me that that's the way I needed to redeploy the pieces. But I do think it's telling that when deciding where to retreat the queen, you should not only think of what looks more logical right now, which I agree to some extent is queen d8. You protect a5 and you prepare moving the rook later on, but preparing the apparently passive bishop retreat, I think is
preparing to try to approve of your theory.
Yeah,
about the bishop dominating the knight.
Yeah. Okay, so we move forward, bishop to d8, castles, and rook c8. So I'm just trying to discoordinate him a bit, which is a theme here. It should be said that in no way is black better here. I'm still sort of, objectively speaking, fighting a little bit for equality. Like, for instance, if he goes b3, I'm gonna go a4 just to get rid of that weak pawn. But this is not really a winning try. After I take on b3, the position would be fairly equal, and with
liquidates a little bit.
Yeah, it liquidates, but there would be just, I think, too little on the board to seriously hope for a win. But I think Smets was still a bit optimistic, so he went for bishop b3. Obviously, the idea is bishop a4, exchanging those bishops, and I think in this particular case, if he were to be able to achieve that, it might indeed be a case of good knight against bad bishop.
Yeah, speaking of strategic themes, that's a major one, especially if you're looking to anchor a knight on a certain square. Can you trade the pieces that could trade for the knight eventually?
Yeah. And then, so I go rook b8, which was one of the points of going rook c8 first to discoordinate him. Obviously, bishop a4 is not it's not possible at the moment, and as we can see in the game, preparing this particular idea is just a bit too time consuming.
So it drops the b2 pawn if white does it immediately.
Yeah, and the b2 pawn, I think, after all, is not a price you're willing to pay in order to exchange those bishops.
Right.
So rook a1 is very consistent, but once again, I think, as the game shows, with very concrete play, I can now take over the initiative.
So king h8 was preparation for f5, of course.
Yeah.
Getting off that diagonal.
And as you could see after other moves like ef5, bishop f5, queen has to protect b3, and here his rooks just look dumb attacking a pawn that's already defended, and it feels like what I'm doing is a lot more harmonious. Bishop e5, e4 is already a huge threat, and I've definitely got the initiative. You can look at lines like bishop c4 trying to get to f1, bishop e4, and if knight e3, then bishop b6 comes in with great effect, and if bishop f1, there's queen f7 attacking d5, and f2 and already winning the game. So it's clear that his idea was all along bishop a4, trading these bishops, and that's what he went for.
Right.
So here I am in some strategic danger here. If he were to just exchange these bishops without any damage, you could safely say that white is better. But now I will first take on a4. As we mentioned earlier, you cannot take with the queen. That will simply drop a pawn.
Queen trade and rook takes b2.
And after, exactly. And after rook a4, fe4, he does have some problems. b2 is only protected once. d5 is unprotected, and I have won a pawn. So this short-term, sort of short-term themes here, short-term, what's the word? Factors are a bit in my favor here. Long-term, obviously they're still in his, but it's not so easy. It's not so easy for him. And as is shown by rook e4, queen b5, once again, attacking two pieces at once and just not necessarily winning the game, but winning a pawn at the very least.
Yeah, that's cool. Switching sides of the board. Previously in a line, you were attacking f2, and the knight, you're attacking the knight in b2.
Yeah. And so he went rook to a2 instead. Once again, he wants to go queen e4 next now after having protected b2. And if he could do that, he would be better. So I have to continue to attack his pieces, basically.
Do you think this was Smate's idea the whole time, to sack a pawn in this way, or did he maybe miss rook takes e4, queen b5?
No, I think as far as I can remember, he spent a lot of time on the previous moves, but rook a2 he made pretty quickly. So here he had, I think he had the definite impression that he would be able to regain the pawn with an advantage.
Right.
I do think that his concept is way too ambitious, and I mean, just looking at it as at a cursory glance, I cannot see what is wrong with the move, like queen g6, for instance. Like, if he goes rook e1, I have ideas like bishop b6, and if knight b6, there is e3.
Yeah. Nice. Another double attack.
Another double attack, yeah, exactly. He probably has others here, but it's like, I don't know, b3 or b4, but it doesn't really feel like white is trying to be better here at all. Maybe queen e2, I don't know, but it's hard to believe. So I think this was definitely his idea, but clearly it's a bit too ambitious. But I had spotted a different idea, which I just couldn't take my eyes off.
I think also this whole discussion highlights the importance of kind of knowing the strategic score, if you will. Like, as black here, you're obviously understanding that you have to play dynamically. You have to play in a way that justifies this knight being permanently entrenched on d5 and not letting white consolidate, win that e4 pawn. Got to be looking for counterplay.
Yeah, I think it goes with the opening, I think.
Right.
And in the Sveshnikov that you give up the square on d5, and you have to continue to play actively, to play concretely, in order to justify that. And as you could see from the start, I did play some quiet moves like queen e8 and bishop d8, but those were only the prelude to more aggressive moves.
Yeah, this has always struck me as an opening where you have to have a good understanding of dynamics to play it successfully as black.
Yeah. Okay, so queen f7. I had a different idea. You go c4, which is very logical. Cementing the knight on d5, and now rook to b3. I was very happy with this idea, always exploiting these little tactics in order to get my pieces into the game. And what happens is...
Yeah, that's nice. So, of course, queen takes b3 for you at home is going to run into queen takes f2, followed by queen f1, and mate to come on the back rank. So
yeah, but yeah, for sure. And now after rook e1 comes the real point, which is bishop to h4. Rook is obviously still taboo, and if rook e2, the point was to go e3, which may not be may not be decisive by any means, but you never want to see this happen. If knight e3, there's rook e3 and queen f1 instead of in case of e3, and bishop f2 instead of rook e3. So he has to go f3. You never really want to see this. But
well, what happens if queen takes b3 after e3?
Queen takes b3 after. Yeah, that's a good question. I would suppose takes and bishop to e1 would be the.
Okay.
I haven't actually checked this, but
it looks very threatening.
Yeah, it looks
queen
pretty,
e3, queen f1, queen g1, take e2.
Yeah,
okay,
looks very, very good. Let me. Oh, wait a sec. You know what? Bishop g3 could be even better.
And so now if queen e3, you're gonna check, take the rook, and rook f1 is in the air.
Yeah, and if he takes, there will be a nice little mate.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, giving up all the pieces except the queen.
Right.
And I think in this case, actually, you would satisfy yourself with as black just by seeing that bishop h4. Also,
yeah,
you can win the rook in any number of ways because of the back rank mate. So there would be no point to look further.
Yeah, e3 is a cool move, like very consistent with the dynamic play.
Yeah, it just feels like it. As you could see, I didn't really even consider queen b3 because it feels like it cannot possibly.
It's got to lose somehow.
Yeah, with the white rook on a2 and everything, it's got to be. Yeah, so once again he has to go f3, and then the game goes on. In one way or another. You can take on f5, a5. I guess I go h6, maybe queen g6 concretely. I don't know. I'm sure he's not lost, but black has the initiative. So he goes g3, and now comes a point again. Rook f3. He's still not given time to recapture the pawn on e4 with impunity. And it has to be said that the journey from c8 to b8, so a8 to c8, then b8, b3, and f3 has been a very successful one.
Yeah,
and as long as he cannot dislodge that particular rook, then his king will always be in some trouble. So he goes b3. Very logical, opening up the second rank.
Since taking the bishop.
Yeah, taking the bishop just loses here. Rook to f2 and then rook to f1. If king g2, there's queen f2, and if he takes an f1, that will be mate in 1. Here, if he goes, let's say queen d1, there's queen g6 and queen g2. So that's all pretty straightforward. So b3, and here we got the theme.
Yeah, further extrapolating on your theme.
Yeah, but here you can really feel it, that whenever the knight would move, the bishop would just go to b6. His knight simply cannot move here. Which I feel, I feel makes the bishop on d8 probably not a lot worse than the knight on d5 here. Obviously, saying that it dominates the knight is an exaggeration, but I'm just really trying to make a point that the domination sort of goes both ways.
Right. Yep.
At the very least. So rook e4 and h5. Now that I've got all my major pieces on the f file, I still have pressure against f2, against b3. I have to continue to attack. So this is also very logical.
I feel like that's an interesting moment when he captures on e4, because I'm trying to imagine myself playing as white. If I was in Smeets' shoes, I might be happy. I'd think, okay, I got my pawn back. The position looks stable. But now with h5, you're hitting him with new resources.
Yeah. And one of the things that I talked about at the start was this game goes to show how difficult it is to beat these particular setups for white, because I think that his position still isn't that bad. I can imagine him playing a move like rook to e3 here, and if he takes, he has allowed the bishop to b6, but that at the very least he's exchanged a rook, which means that his position shouldn't be that bad. I probably wouldn't take it. I would go h4 immediately, but I don't know. Then there's queen e2. So I don't think he's in trouble really here, or in any major trouble. But at the very least, the usual sort of comfortable life that white has in these positions, he doesn't have at all. And it should be remembered that Smeets is also a notorious time trouble
I didn't know that about him.
addict, and I think he was in pretty bad time trouble here already. So even I can imagine on move 32 he usually would be.
So even more of a reason to push the pace for you.
Yeah. That's for sure. So he still continues to play quite ambitiously here. He doesn't want to exchange, but now he plays rook e2, h4, and he plays rook b2. And the idea is now he wants to centralize the queen.
And just one other quick thing that comes to mind: if he had played h4 to stop you from playing h4, is g5 the type of move you would play without thought here?
For sure, I would just go for it.
Okay.
It feels like you all your forces are pointing this way, and if takes, if queen e2 trying to help out, then you go rook takes b3. It's not a big deal still, I think, but at least I feel like black has a definite initiative.
So you can afford to weaken your king, push both the h and the g pawns, because you're attacking on that wing. You have control over there.
Yeah, I feel that way. And if, I don't know, if rook a5, there's rook b1, king g2. I can imagine maybe rook b2, queen e4, centralizing the queen, and as far as I could see, keeping a lot of pressure on the white position. Threatening this one, and also taking on c4 and h. Yeah,
I just think that g5 moment is such another good example of how good players, they know when to break the rules.
Exactly. So yeah, usually you would consider such play to be overambitious, but in this particular case, when you do have activity like this, then you can sometimes afford just to break these rules, and
you judge the dynamics properly. Anything's possible.
Exactly, and as you said about that dynamics, you have to play dynamically, because long-term factors are still pretty good for white. So, so there's no reason not to play actively. So he tries to play quite ambitiously still with rook b2, logically protecting b3, dislodging his queen, and I played g6, preparing king g7, rook h8 at some point. And as we could see in the game, it also had a little trap, which was also pretty typical of me at the time. But it's always a good thing if these trappy moves can be combined with actual good ideas.
Yes, that's what I tell my chess students. The best type of traps are just good moves, period, that contain a hidden tactical theme.
Mm-hmm. So, king g2, he cracks in time trouble. The case can certainly be made that white can hold this position by like something like queen d2, threatening queen h6 in case I take on g3, king g7, rook d3. There's no bishop g5 because of rook f3, and the game goes on, and probably I would do something like takes and I don't know, rook f5, but there's no reason why white should be anywhere close to lost quite yet.
Right.
But after the move in the game, he is lost. Finally, after all this pressure, he's cracked. And I take and rook takes g3. I can still remember the feeling of being able to unleash this particular
rook sacrifice. And I guess the same motif applies if he takes with the f pawn instead of the h pawn.
Yeah. So if he takes with the f pawn, then king g7, rook h8 is unstoppable. And this is why I went g6.
Yep. Preparation for king g7, ladies.
Yeah. Otherwise, it wouldn't work. King g3. It's exactly the same. It's gonna be mate. So he has to go king f1, queen f3, queen e4. Don't want to exchange queens yet with him having such an unsafe king. Knight e3. Bishop comes into play from g5 this time. Suppose bishop b6. Keeping that theme was also possible. Rook f3. Here there were already, I think, no reasons to calculate too much. Knight f1.
Yeah, I imagine you're really enjoying yourself at this point.
Yeah, that's for sure. Bishop c1, and I remember pretty happy with this one as well.
That's a cool maneuver.
Yeah.
Billiard shot off the rail.
Yeah, exactly. Bishop coming to b4, and that's going to be pretty hurtful. And at this point, it's pretty clear what is the better minor piece. So he went rook a2 instead to prevent that. But now there was rook b3, and here queen g4 was a blunder. But he's 2 pawns down with a lost position anyway. Should be mentioned lines like, I think after c5 I can go bishop a3. So there's no counterplay. If he takes, then
yeah, that's nasty.
It's pretty nasty. But he went queen g4 and preparing knight e4. But now I just take queen g3 and queen h1. It's going to be mate next.
Yes, awesome. Yeah, I love this game. I think for all you Sveshnikov players out there, this is an absolutely model game. Good one to review because, as we were saying, if you're going to play this opening, you have to have a good understanding of dynamics. And just to master strategic themes and strategic play in general, you have to understand dynamics. They go hand in hand, right? It's a constant balancing act.
They absolutely do. And I think this was not a case of somebody playing very poorly as white, because he played ambitiously. It didn't really go quite his way, but then he still did pretty well for a while to keep it manageable. He always had a very clear strategic idea of what he was gonna do, but eventually he cracked because I played quite energetically, and at some point he couldn't stand the pressure. This game shows a lot of the possible ideas that you can find there, and as you said, strategy and tactics, they go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm. You played on both sides of the board. You used a rook pawn to weaken his king.
Yeah.
Lots of themes here.
Lots of themes there, and you just gotta be able to think long term and short term at the same time, and have them balance each other out, which is what is interesting for all of those who want to play the Sveshnikov and are inspired by these games. I should also mention that not all games are going to be like this. Sometimes a well-prepared white opponent is just going to give you no chances whatsoever. You're just going to have pretty boring game, which I've had a few of. I feel recently in the Sveshnikov, where just nothing happens and there is just a strategic balance. But that's what happens in any opening, and I can absolutely recommend to take it up.
Yeah, you'll probably take some knocks if you're first learning this opening. Suffering against that knight on d5, that's probably part of the learning process.
For sure. After a while, I guess you could become a bit less concerned about it, because it's always gonna be there. If you try and eliminate it, you're probably not going to be successful against a strong opponent. So you just have to find a way to play around it to find the strength of your own position there.
Yeah, and remember, bishop on d8 dominates knight on d5.
Exactly.
You heard it from Magnus himself.
Exactly.